Okay, as an author, you're starting to feel defeated. Maybe your first book didn't do as well as you wanted it to, or maybe you're a few books in and you're like, do I still want to do this? I'm not selling. I'm barely breaking even. There's just so many thoughts that can go through your mind. Imposter syndrome. People think it's really cool that I'm an author, but I feel like I'm not doing much. So I've totally been there. I've had all of those thoughts. Like, am I just like, this is just a hobby? And my goal was to sell books and like help our family, like do something I love, but also be able to make some money to like help our family out. And I feel like that's not happening. Just so many things. Like I did DoorDash for a time and I was like, oh my gosh, I am making more money in one day of DoorDash than I do in a month sometimes. And that was just the reality at the time. That was a couple years ago. And it was so discouraging because it's like, why am I even doing this? And that brings me to the number one thing you need to do when you feel super defeated is remember your why. And I would highly recommend writing it down so you can go back to it. I typed it out in the notes app in my phone, and this is what I wrote. This was in 2023. So a few years ago, I started writing or published my first book in 2022. I would have started writing fiction in 2021. So this is what I said when I wrote down my why, my writing goal. I said, I want to write clean romance that allows people to take a break from the stresses of life and be reminded that amidst the challenges, there is joy, a happily ever after, a good God that gives us so much to be thankful for. Most importantly, the people in our lives and the ability to make a difference in another person's life. A lesson we can learn or be reminded of in a way that is natural, getting to know someone. There is more to each person's story. Life is stressful, but clean, sweet rom-coms are a jolt of joy to my easily overwhelmed soul. So I was going through a really hard time. Like my kids were born, I definitely had some postpartum anxiety and depression, and that's kind of what led me to get back into reading is I needed that escape, and it helped me so much just to have that little piece when they were napping, to get lost in a story, and it brought me so much joy. So I wanted to do that for other people as well. There was a time after I released Just a Holiday Hangout and my newsletter magnet, Just a Role Reversal, which actually takes place before this story. And two of the characters, Jade and Cam, are Chase's brother, would be Cam. Anyways, it tells their story. And I had finished the series. I have a newsletter magnet, definitely thinking all these things are just gonna like boost sales, it's going to take off. And I felt like it really didn't. And so God brought to mind the quote because I was feeling very disappointed, very discouraged. He brought to mind the quote that I first read in Mark Batterson's book, Draw the Circle. When I was looking this quote up again, it's been attributed to some different people, but this is where I had read it a few years earlier. Mark Batterson's quote says, people tend to overestimate what can be done in 1 year and to underestimate what can be done in 5 or 10 years. So for me, that has been a recurring theme in my author journey. I published my first novella in 2022. Obviously, it's just starting 2026. And so I'm not even at that 5 year mark. And when I look at other authors, I can often compare myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so much farther than I am. But sometimes I look at them, it's like they have published a lot more books than me. They have put in a lot more work than I have. And maybe some people have less, have put in less work and have more success, but maybe it was more behind the scenes. So don't compare yourself to others, or if you do, use it as motivation and encouragement. Like, wow, they have published like 20 books and their last 5 have taken off. And I'm so happy for them. That's so cool. But there's also that reminder, like, you got to put in the work. And so, yeah, don't overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what can be done in 5 years. You got to not give up in that 3-4 year mark, right? We got to keep going. So I hope that's encouraging to you. Just know it's totally normal to be discouraged or disappointed at where you're at, but don't let that stop you and keep moving forward. I feel like a broken record, but keep trying new things and keep writing. That is what people want to hear is your story. Have a great day.